Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun.Deals, and today we are going to be talking about how I set up a competition rifle, or at least a rifle that can compete. Now, before we get into that, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is free and does help us out quite a bit. And go ahead and comment your favorite out-of-the-box competition rifle in the comments down below. Now, full disclosure, I am a dealer for a lot of the parts that you're going to see in this video, so they weren't sent to me for free, but just keep in mind that there is a relationship there. Now, starting off with what we have here and what I kind of built this upper end system for is for a two-gun competition, and I wanted something that would not only accomplish the task, because of course you can compete with quite literally anything, but I wanted something that would do well at that job. For this build specifically, I went with a 16-inch barrel from RCA Industries because they offer a 16-inch barrel with a rifle-length gas system, which is why you see this gas block sticking out from the front of the rail, because that is the longest gas system you can possibly put on a 16-inch rifle, which means that when it's tuned and set up properly, it's about the smoothest shooting 16-inch gun on the market. The barrel's a 1-in-7 twist, 5.56 chambering, middleweight profile, which is very nicely balanced in my opinion. Just again has that really long rifle length gas system. Out front, we also have a RCA muzzle brake. This is also one of their Plan B muzzle mounts for a suppressor. If you did want to mount a suppressor on this type of muzzle device, it's a single port brake with a couple ports up top as well to kind of control the rear and vertical recoil. 5.56 doesn't have much recoil to begin with, so I wanted to be careful not to over-tune the gun where it would drive the gun down after every shot. You can get that with some muzzle brakes and muzzle devices where it actually dips the front end of the gun, which is not particularly pleasant. So I wanted a gun that basically doesn't recoil no matter what I'm doing with it. So if I'm gripping it hard, it still just shoves back a little bit nicely and it doesn't drive the front of the gun down. It's very consistent and relatively quote-unquote neutral for a muzzle brake, which for 5.56 that already doesn't have much recoil, you take away another 30 to 40%, and well, you have a very, very smooth shooting platform that you should be able to pull those doubles off very quickly. Now, talking about the rail for a moment, rails for competition rifles don't really matter for me at all. I like the length and the size of this quad rail, which is also from RCA Industries. It's also right at 2 pounds with a steel barrel nut, which is absolutely insane weight for any rail and might make it one of the heaviest rails on the market that you can get. But the rails don't really matter as long as it's the right length and shape for you that's comfortable. You're probably not going to be mounting anything to it, so after that it's all just a personal preference. Now, talking about the optic selection on here, we have a Romeo 8T and a Primary Arms 3X micro magnifier, both in FDE. The Romeo 8T, despite some of SIG's recent activities, is probably my favorite red dot on the market currently, and for competition purposes has a big window. The glass looks really good, so I don't have any problems with it. For this match specifically, the furthest shot we were going to take was at 100 yards at some steel plates, so I really didn't need any more magnification than 3x with the micro magnifier. If I were shooting a different type of match where you had stages out to 400 or 500 yards, then I probably would have gone with a different optic setup. However, since I knew the furthest we were going to be shooting for this competition was 100 yards, a red dot magnifier combo works quite well, and you certainly don't need something as expensive as a Romeo 8T. Just about any red dot will work that works well for you. Now, the reason why I don't have any sort of risers or other wacky things on here is a lot of the times for quick up close targets you might have no shoots or hard cover, so you need to be very, very careful about your height over bore. A lot of the competitors at this competition with certain targets absolutely put rounds where they should not have and got mics and no shoots simply because they were not factoring in that height over bore. So keeping the optic as low as possible while still being comfortable, it also allows you to have the best position on the gun to control that recoil, whatever there may or may not be for your specific setup. Now, talking about everything else, the lower receiver in the back, we have a H1 buffer and a standard carbine spring. You can definitely get a lot wackier with your buffer spring set up to totally tune the recoil out of the gun or to make it feel the way that you like. However, this was pretty much a quick and dirty build. The trigger is a LaRue 2-stage trigger, the MBT2S or whatever it's called. It's very good for right at $100. This is a next level armament lower receiver, which has a huge flared mag well for your reloads. I didn't have to do any reloads for this competition because I was running 40 round mags, but for some of the competitors it might have helped out. On top of that, this lower receiver is ambidextrous, which is quite nice when it comes to showing clear, because you can lock the bolt or drop the bolt if you have it open, depending on how these stages are staged. Now, the bolt carrier group in here, the bolt itself is a AO Precision high pressure tested MPI Carpenter 158 bolt, nothing special. The carrier is a titanium nitride carrier with a Rubber City Armory Adjustable Gas Key, which is not particularly forgiving when it comes to adjustment. It's much more of a set and forget, and since, again, this is kind of a competition style rifle, I'm not going to be adjusting the gas on the flow. I'm going to set it at a comfortable level and kind of forget about it, and let the weight of the gun and the muzzle brake and the ammunition do the rest. A lot of people are very pedantic about how they set up their rifle recoil impulse to feel. I don't particularly care all that much. I'm not a recoil snob in that way. I like to get rid of as much of it as I can, and that last 5 to 10%, I'll leave that to those people winning, national and world titles. The only other thing of note is the Break Arms Sledgehammer charging handle, which is quite nice. It's ambidextrous, has a great shelf and a deflection port for extra gas if you need it for suppressed shooting. For competition shooting, I think I might have used it one time in the entire match. As far as how the match went, I did win overall with 2 stage wins, and I don't believe I was outside of the top 3 on any of the rifle related stages, and the distance between me and second place was quite literally 1 bad reload, which I didn't have to do because I was using 40-round magazines. As far as this rifle's performance goes, it's pretty much flawless. There's a couple little things I could do to tune the recoil impulse a little bit more, specifically for competition shooting. I could go with a lightweight carrier, slightly different buffer and spring setup, and I could fine tune it to where it barely moves without any input from me, the shooter, which is probably what I would do if I was going to be more serious about competing with a rifle. As far as the performance of the system itself, the CAC 16-inch barrel is relatively accurate. It's a good profile. I'm not 100% sold on the CAC 13-inch quad rail just because of how heavy it is. It is a little bit bigger, so depending on if you like that, if that's your preference, maybe you want something that's a little smaller, a little bit lighter. I don't hate it. I don't love it for competition shooting, and it probably belongs on a different build. Other than the carrier, the buffers, and springs, I really wouldn't change anything on it, and if I wanted to be a lot more serious about competing with a rifle in different types of matches, I would probably build a identical rifle to this, or a second upper that is, again, identical in every way, except it has a 1-6 or a 1-8 LPVO on top if I were going to be doing stages that needed a little bit of extra magnification at longer range, smaller targets. And that will probably be a job for next year's John if I want to be more serious about competing with rifles, is to build out 2 basically identical setups, sans the optics for truly gamering the AR-15 purposes. So when it comes down to it, there's not a lot that you have to do to turn an AR-15 into a quote-unquote gamer AR. It usually comes down to the right brakes, maybe a nice trigger, maybe, lightweight components to make the recoil even lighter, and then the optic setup of choice, and there you go. It doesn't need to be a $2,500 tuned JP rifle or a Cobalt or some of these other tuned competition rigs, so they definitely can have their place, especially if you want to compete with the big guys. But for winning local comps, I think your generic rifle with a brake will just about do the trick. So with all that out of the way, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.